CRM Audio presents Captain Redlace's Power BI Corner with Business Solutions MVP Scott Sewell.
This episode of Captain Redlace's Power BI Corner is brought to you by our friends at KingswaySoft. KingswaySoft is a leading integration solution provider offering software solutions that make data integration affordable and painlessly easy. Thousands of enterprise clients from over 65 countries and regions rely on KingswaySoft to integrate data with various application systems in order to drive their business efficiency and fully leverage their information assets. KingswaySoft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, NAV, GP, SL, as well as many other applications such as Marketo, Dropbox, QuickBooks, and Salesforce. Whether you need one solution or several, KingswaySoft works easily within the SSIS platform to make your integration process as quick and easy as possible. Many of their clients have seen 3 to 10 times greater data integration performance after switching to the SSIS integration toolkit. We thank KingswaySoft for their support of Captain Redlace's Power BI Corner.
Well, Mr. Sewell, did you have a good CRMUG Focus conference?
Man, it was great. You got to see. It's always fun to be there and catch up with folks that you haven't seen for a while. And you know, the CRM community it really is a community, and it's fun to be a part of. And so yeah, it was a real pleasure to be back in St. Louis and see the folks there.
So if it's a community, you can be the mayor of the analytics neighborhood.
That's right. Yeah. So actually, it was interesting. The Dynamics community, which is the group that organizes the CRM, AX, GP, and now Power BI user groups, they, as an overarching group, they created 4 different conferences, and the CRM one was Muddy Tuesday, and then they also had parallel the AX ones, and then Wednesday, Thursday was Power BI, and I got to speak in both the CRM and the Power BI sessions. So it was good to see those different audiences and so much overlap, but yet got to meet some new people in the Power BI side that I haven't seen. So that's
nice.
Good.
So what did you present? For those who weren't there, what did they miss?
Tons. It was great. It was amazing. Well, I don't know. So I had a great time with it. It was fun to take. In the past, as if you come from a CRM perspective, you've spent plenty of time in the demo data or sample data that Microsoft provides. Very, very generic, simple, Contoso, or not Contoso, but AdventureWorks cycle demo bicycle shop, right?
Jim Glynn at Fabricam is one of my best friends.
Fabricam, it's the same old names, the same old. So I thought, okay, I gotta do something different just to break up the monotony a little bit. A couple of years ago, Karsten, Garth, and I did a one on Breaking Bad CRM. So we did that as a just something to break up the monotony a little bit, and that was actually a lot of fun. But this year, I took one of the things that's real common in the BI world is to take a real world data set that exists and that you can use to serve as a sort of a training example, a common example, and different people have tried different things against this data set. And what they use is the list of passengers from the Titanic. And there's a site that's got a common list of passengers, and it's got their name, their first class, second class, third class cabin, what their gender was, what their age was, and then all. Yeah. Oh my. So it's got it's got all the information about those folks, and what they one of the things it doesn't have is a list of all the crew that are associated with it, like the crews from the different parts of the ship. So I went to a site called Encyclopedia Titanica. Go figure. And grabbed a set of the passenger crew and then brought that into CRM. Used the CRM contacts, brought all these folks into CRM, set up related entities for the crew type, as well as the sort of groupings among them, tickets, and I used the ticket price that they paid, and then set up. I had to put some fictional data in there for a ticket purchase date. I needed a date measure for something, but so I brought all that in, and then connected that from CRM. So you had all this, this nice rich data set, and then connected it via a workflow to hit an Azure machine learning engine model there that I'd created, so that if I took all the known data, fed it over to Azure machine learning, and built a model that said, okay, let's look at all those attributes, whether it's their age or their gender, or were they first class, second class, third class, or were they working in the kitchen or officers, all that information, and score it and say, okay, the people who were like everybody who was in the ship's orchestra, they all died on the Titanic. And so if we see somebody who's in the orchestra, then we assume that they're probably not going to make it off the boat, right?
I think you made me part of the orchestra one time, and I had like a 0.01% chance of surviving.
Yeah. So what we did, exactly.
There's always hope.
There's always hope. That's right. So I've used that. I said, here's our data that we know. Feed that into Azure Machine Learning, and then from Azure Machine Learning, I then have this model that says, okay, what about somebody that's brand new? And now I set it up so I could create new passengers for the Titanic, new hypothetical passengers, like a lead scoring. So it was like inbound lead, and I create a new record, and I want to determine, my business case is I want to determine whether or not I sell them travel insurance. And so if they're a musician, I'm not going to sell them travel insurance, because they have almost 100% chance of not getting off the boat. But if they are a female 23-year-old first-class passenger that originated from Southampton, then they've got a pretty high chance, almost about a 98% chance that they're going to get on, that they're going to be rescued. Kind of the women and children first aspect. Anyway, so when it comes back, that data comes back, that I get a score on that. If they have a high enough percentage of getting off the boat successfully, I'm going to create an opportunity to sell trip insurance to them, because they're a low risk person, and I think that I should sell them. So it's a good process, but it was a fun just to take that example and share what could be done between CRM, Power BI, and Azure Machine Learning. Of course, to bring it all around, I've got everything displayed as a Power BI set of dashboards that I can interact with and explore how different aspects affect whether or not someone would successfully make it into a lifeboat. That
is both fascinating and morbid.
Yeah, too soon. Yeah. So it was it's a common data set that people use, but I thought I'd put a CRM spin on it and make it. The fun part about that is taking this CRM plus Azure Machine Learning, tying those two together, and then the CRM data goes out to machine learning and gets scored. The results of that come back into CRM and turns into an opportunity. That's really taking that idea of making CRM the action layer, the actionable part of the process. And this BI world that this brave new BI world that we're living in, then has some ability to turn that into dollars for the customer, the customer throughout the process. I mean, I mentioned the BI piece. The truth is, all of the work that I did on the machine learning piece, in my limited experience, I was able to knock that out fairly quickly. We're talking about under a week that I had the entire thing end to end running, and that was the first time out the gate.
And I believe you were using some kind of was it an action or what was the thing from Lucas Alexander?
Yeah, exactly.
To bring that
So,
back into CRM.
right. One of the pieces of code that I used for that workflow that I said took it from CRM and sent it to Azure Machine Learning and brought it back. The piece of code I got was I grabbed that off of Lucas Alexander's blog. And Lucas, I swapped emails with him a couple times, but his information was invaluable by creating a custom action in workflow that then allows me to call Azure Machine Learning. But it was really useful. Thanks for mentioning that. I want to make sure I give credit where credit's due.
And that's where the Titanic example, as I believe George Zabinski would say, was cute, but where it hits the real world is I could really see you using that for, somebody like a salesperson looking at an opportunity and seeing what percentage chances have so they could focus on the ones that are most valuable. Or even something like an insurance company, taking your example, not on the Titanic, but in the real world, that kind of scoring and lead scoring and that type of thing. I think really powerful and great.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that makes the machine learning, which is the science that's just kind of out there that nobody understands, makes it a lot more understandable.
Yeah, it's amazing. It used to be that there was if you were going to embark on a machine learning AI project, many were embarking on a high risk project because the customers needed to do that because they had these high risk numbers that they were trying to crunch. Like, for instance, if you're trying to build out an actuarial score for an insurance policy, right, or a recidivism score for in a criminal justice case, or if you wanted to build out some sort of a scoring on a risk of a medical trial being successful or failing. Those were very high need, complex, very important problems that machine learning could be used to solve. What's happened over the last few years, very, very quickly, that power that was so expensive has now moved down to where I built this model and I ran it and I scored all my data and developed it and rebuilt it a couple of times. At the end of the day, my Azure machine learning cost, the charges that Azure charged me was about $1.32. So for $1.32, I'm harnessing the same algorithms and the same structures that just a few years ago were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, I got to say, there's a big difference between me plugging in a pretty simple algorithm and letting it run versus somebody who has a true statistical background and says, let me understand what the problem set is and what the parameters are, and let's determine is it more important to be conservative in what we and capture only the most likely to be true, or is it okay? Should I capture more and include several more that might be false? So you have there's a statistical layer and there's a lab coat layer that says, let's tune this and right size it for a true model. But man, you can now focus on just that high value part and not worry about all the grind, the number grinding behind the scenes, because that's all just done by Azure Machine Learning. And it's, like I said, $1.32's worth of compute power that I spent scoring all this. Big difference in the process.
I think it's still worth noting though that in real world scenarios like opportunity close or chance of a probability of a case or something like that, you have to have a good baseline of data to accurately predict with machine learning. If you don't have any opportunity history, you're not going to be able to make any accurate predictions about it. But once you have data, and anybody's been using CRM for several years and then closing opportunities and things like that, this is pretty powerful stuff that you can pretty easily harness now.
Yeah, it's a good point, Joel. It's a good point that it doesn't start. This doesn't precede your data, right? But it's also worth noting that it shouldn't lag behind in your data design process. So when you're planning your operation, you're planning your data model, keeping in mind the types of problems that you might want to try to solve with that data and how you want that data organized and what kind of structures you want on it, that's still valuable to do early on, even before you have a big data set. But it's definitely something to keep in mind. And but man, if you've already got a big data set and you're not tapping into it, the risk, I think I said before, the risk used to be, as you're stepping into these big projects, it was a risky project, but it was a high reward. Well, it used to be the risk was tackling the project. Now the risk is shifting, and the risk is now not tackling the project, because I can almost guarantee you that if you're in a business and you're not looking at your data with more advanced tools, your competitors are doing that. And the competitors are moving forward, and your risk of not taking advantage of these things that are now so much more accessible is actually higher than the risk of not taking action.
Well, even an example like we see all the time when we configure Dynamics 365 CRM is people say, okay, I've got these 4 stages: propose, qualify, meeting and close, or something like that, and they put percentages on them. Say if it's proposed, I put a 25%. If it's qualify, I put 45%. But those percentages might be off. And by reevaluating it with machine learning to see, okay, what is it really, if it's in that stage, what percentage of those really do close, you can use that to check yourself rather than going on some arbitrary assumption.
Yeah, absolutely, very good point. And the other side of it is what I think of as a 45% close rate, or a 45% close likelihood, and what you think of as a 45% close. We're friends. We work together. We are in the same company, but we sort of interpret numbers differently. It's important that adding this external layer adds a little bit of layer of objectivity. Now, don't let me say anything wrong about it's not a magic bullet that suddenly gives you a perfectly clear crystal ball into the future. It just does. I mean, hey, if I find that module, I'm quitting this and headed down a few blocks to Wall Street. It just doesn't do that. But what it does do is give you closer guidance to what you're seeing, more stable understanding of what you're about to see, and doing it without human bias in a lot of ways.
Right.
Very interesting.
It also lets you take more complex measures too, because
Absolutely.
If you're doing it just as an arbitrary number, you're going to say stage 3 is 45%, but stage 3 with widget A might be 85%, where stage 3 with widget B might be 13%.
That's right.
And that way you can factor in more dimensions there to get more of a more precision in your forecast.
Yeah, and then of course taking all that information and then resurfacing it through Power BI gives you as an information worker, as a manager, the ability to take that, distill it down in from high volumes down to a few pretty pictures on a dashboard, and consume it and use it. Really a powerful connection synergy between the environments there.
Okay, well, Scott, I appreciate it, and just remember,
it's good talking to you again.
Our BI will go on.
That's right.
Sing us out, Celine.
Oh, this is painful.